Three, two, one. If you're there, say hello, and we'll run our test as usual, and we will begin our Independence Day broadcast from the mind of Michael Savage. So, are you there? Can you hear me now? Say yes. I want to see your comments. We're just starting, and when I see your comments flowing, I'll begin my sermon, my independence sermon. How's the sound level? I hope it's good. Good? I know there's not going to be many people here because most people today are p- parades, parties, floats, meaningless garbage because they don't even know what they're celebrating by and large. And the perverts have taken over the parades in the Porn Belt, West Coast, East Coast. I don't go to the 4th of July parades anymore. There used to be a lovely one in one of the towns I lived in here near San Francisco when a local carting company gentleman, Gabarino, he was alive and he used to collect World War II military items, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and he put them on flatbeds and they'd be running through the parade. I love that. And then there were Boy Scouts. Now we have the pervert scouts. And we have people celebrating perversity and celebrating diversity, not celebrating America's independence from the domination of a colonial power named Britain. I don't go to the parades. I can't take it anymore because I don't want to be one of those people who has to turn my back on the perverts. I'm not into pride. To me, pride are the men who lost their legs or are buried in cemeteries, military cemeteries. That's the pride. You don't see them in the parades. What you see are the deviants with the flags. I can't take it, so I don't go. So Europe is burning because of the Muslim hordes, and you're not seeing it in the news. I turned on Fox, I turned on CNN, I turned on all of them, and they're not talking about Europe burning from the Muslim hordes. Now, let me tell you something before I really begin, so you don't accuse me of being something I'm not. Let me quote a Muslim, an imam, who says, Imam Tawhidi of France said this about the Muslim riots in France now spreading to Belgium, where the Muslims have been invited in. Quote, he said, you, France, went to the Muslim countries and imported the garbage, and I'm quoting now, imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate away from their own societies. Why did you import them? He said, for cheap labor. But he goes on. It's an amazing story here. The other extremist groups, like the Muslim Brotherhood, who are friends with the IRGC. Can you hear this? People, can you hear this? Operate in Bahrain, in Oman. Is that coming through? Countries. Where do they operate? In London, in France, in Washington, D.C., in Australia, in Canada, Toronto. They operate here. They have bank accounts. They register charity. Right. So Macron, the president of France, recently said the Islamic world is in a crisis. I say, no, you are in a crisis. Can you hear this? You can't hear it. Okay. Muslim countries. Got it. And you imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put. You imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate away from society. And you imported them. Why? For cheap labor. This is Imam Tawahidi. They don't want to work. They want free welfare. They want to marry French women, blonde hair, blue eyes. They don't have time to work. Look at Poland. They don't complain about Islamic extremism. Not a single terrorist attack in Poland. The minute there's a problem, they crack down on it. Polish policy, beautiful. French, no. When they come, they use the resources. They go to Washington, D.C., and they sit in Congress. They support the Iranian regime. They go against the sanctions in Congress with their hijab. Right? With their hijab? Why? Why? Because the ideology is filth. He said the ideology is filth to begin with. When you import that and you allow it, or you amplify it, or you glorify it anyway, you make your bed, you sleep in it. That is also a problem of the West. The question is, so that's an interview with Imam Tawahidi on French riots. You went to the Muslim countries and imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate in their own countries, and you did so for cheap labor. I've tried to warn you for years in almost all of my books, but you can't find this on Fox or CNN. Where have you found this? Nowhere. Well, I'm repeating it now. And look what we have here in this country. Take a look at the perversion and the filth that we have in this country. In some counties in Marin, they don't even have school board meetings anymore. They're closed to the public. They don't want parents to have any say in the raising of their children or the teaching of their children. That's what liberalism has wrought. I warned you. Not only is liberalism a mental disorder, liberalism as a religion, it's a religion to the uberlibs. It's their religion. It's not an ideology, it's a religion. They found coke in the White House. Whose was it? I don't know, but they said that the first son was in there on Friday. They found it on Sunday. Is it reported on the CNN? What's the difference if they found coke in the White House? Isn't that a decision, a choice, a lifestyle choice? It's a choice. Some like coffee. I like caffeine, so some like cocaine. That's the liberal mentality, right? Okay, look, I could go on and on all day long about this. It's not going to change a damn thing. And I'm almost sick and tired of it all. And I may just shortly, you won't hear from me much longer. I've been coming to a philosophical point in my life where I realize certain things, and I don't have to share them right now. It's not important that every word be shared. So why am I on YouTube with you today, and on Twitter and on Facebook, where we will post this shortly? Because my heart is crying for America. My heart is screaming for Europe. My brain is screaming for Western civilization. Began with the lesbians who screamed, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western civ has got to go. This is 30 years ago. Bella Abzug and the other filth, vermin, garbage. Hellish, hellish garbage. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Western civ has got to go. They started chanting that in America. They weren't out to destroy Western civilization. They were out to topple the white European male who stood in the way of the conquest of the West by the lesbian mafia. So now that they've won, Norway, Sweden, all the Nordic countries run by radical feminists until recently, maybe they threw some of them out. All of them warmongers. You would think they would have been peaceniks. Weren't we told that when women took over, we'd have peace on earth? Instead, we have war. Raging war now that the lesbians and gays have taken over the West. We have the brink of World War III. In fact, there was a great article the other day that I read. Is nuclear war inevitable? It's a fabulous article, and I don't want to talk about it because it's too depressing. The logic is almost flawless. This is what they have brought us to. Not peace, not love, but hate and war. So I didn't want to begin with Is Europe Burning, but that's the title of today's YouTube cast, whatever. And so what I wanted to talk about was philosophy in a way, because I've been moving more and more in that direction. And I came back upon a great teacher from the 1100s named Maimonides. You may have heard the statement, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. That was from the great Jewish scholar Maimonides. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. I heard that phrase many years ago. I didn't know it was from the great Maimonides. I know Maimonides said, he who saves a single life, it is as though he has saved the entire world. That I have known for years, right? But you look into Maimonides, they call him a Spanish philosopher, which is really funny. He's a Jewish philosopher, not a Spanish philosopher per se, because the basic core of his teachings are that of God, not of Spain. It shows you. Do not consider it proof just because it is written in books. For a liar who will deceive with his tongue will not hesitate to do the same with his pen. He is a great one that I've used all my life. No disease that can be treated by diet should be treated with any other means. I've written books since the 70s on diet and disease. But the best one, and he was a mathematician and an astronomer, by the way, he who wishes to attain to human perfection must therefore first study logic. That's from Aristotle. Next, the various branches of mathematics in their proper order, then physics, and lastly, metaphysics. Now, this is a man who was deeply religious, who said all leads back into from God. But the most powerful of his statements I put on Twitter the other day, and this is astounding because this will free you from judging yourself too harshly and free you from judging candidates for the presidency or office too harshly. Every man should view himself as equally balanced, half good and half evil, half good and half evil. Likewise, he should see the entire world as half good and half evil. And with a single good deed, he will tip the scales for himself and for the entire world to the side of good, Maimonides. You look him up. In the 1100s, half and half. So that means you are half good and half evil, equally balanced, half good, half evil. You not struggle with that? You not struggle with that? Of course you do. Don't lie to yourself. You know you're half good and half evil, and you're struggling with it all day long. So I put that up, and then people give me their garbage about, Jesus is the way. I don't want to hear that anymore. Get out of your doxy and try to open your mind. Stop being so bigoted. No, there's not a single way. There are 8 billion people on the planet with many religions and many, many beliefs. Stop beating people up. So you go to Maimonides and you see wisdom that has lasted through the ages. And one woman answered with this. I wish I could find it instantly. I didn't prepare this so I would have the answer. It's beautiful. I think I sent it by email to put on my website today. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe I'll find it. I can't really find it. Man Saving a Turtle. That was a beautiful one. Let's see if it's on michaelsavage.com. I must find it. It's about the Native American view of this particular issue. What's this? French media reports vigilante gangs zip tying riders and handing them to police. Don't tell that to the French ACLU. Oh no, don't tell that to the vermin in the legal profession in France. Liberté, equalité, fraternité. Let it burn to the ground. I do not care. I'm a socialist. You import garbage and you get garbage. No, I don't have it. But it's from a Native American view of the 50-50 deal. Cocaine found at the White House Secret Service preliminary tests reveal white powder that sparked hazmat situation was illegal drug. You didn't see that on CNN? Andy Cooper didn't break free from his boyfriend to give you that report? Today I have a great podcast out with Carrie Lake, who I really admire. Can America Be Saved? And I recommend you go listen to it after the holiday because many of you haven't had the time yet. Carrie Lake with Michael Savage. I would say it's one of my best interviews and best podcasts to date. She's a hero of mine. It's worth listening to. You, France, went to the Muslim countries and imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate from their own societies. And the Imam says, why? For cheap labor? And someone I respect says, no, that's not why. It was for socialist votes. The same way Biden and the Democrats are importing third world refuse into this country, the barbarian hordes that nobody wants in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala. They don't want them. These are the people that these countries hate. And so the leaders of Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, they send them to Yankee land. And the stupid Yankees want them because Biden is so greedy and insane. The Democrat Party is so corrupt that they'll take criminals and bums to check another vote for get another Democrat. And that's the death of the West. And that's why it's hard for me to go on, because I don't see a future right now. So I'm going back to philosophy like Maimonides. He wrote, "You must accept the truth from whatever source it comes." How many years have I told you that years ago, I did a, a show on my view of religion, which is the wheel. God is at the center, and there are different spokes, and the different spokes, the different ways to approach God. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism are the major religions. They all approach God in a different way. Now, some of you say it's only Jesus, and I don't want to hear it anymore. Stop it. Stop it. You're as fanatical as the Islamists. Stop it. It's a big world. You're not alone in the world. No disease that can be treated by diet should be treated with any other means. Well, all the great evils which men cause to each other because of certain intentions, desires, opinions, or religious principles are likewise due to non-existence because they originate in ignorance, which is absence of wisdom. This is logic. I'll repeat it because it has to be thought about. All the great evils which men cause to each other because of certain intentions, desires, opinions, or religious principles are likewise due to non-existence because they originate in ignorance, which is absence of wisdom. If a person studies too much and exhausts his reflective powers, he will be confused and will not be able to apprehend even that which had been within the power of his apprehension. For the powers of the body are all alike in this respect. Well, I love philosophy, and I'm quoting to you now from the great Jewish philosopher, Maimonides. It's hard. Maimonides, 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 also known as the Rambam. And he wasn't revered by the Jews of his time. Many of them castigated him. He was like a Jesus in many ways to the Jews because he wasn't Jewish enough. He talked outside the rabbinic teachings. He talked philosophy, logic, scientific method. And so he was not loved completely. And so you look at who he was when he lived. Amazing, isn't it? Born in Cordoba, Spain in 1138. Now I'm going to talk about his birth date for a moment. Moses ben Maimon, commonly known as Maimonides, and referred to by the acronym Rambam, was a Sephardic Jewish philosopher who became one of the most prolific and influential Torah scholars of the Middle Ages. He was influenced by Abul Walid Muhammad ibn Rushd, Aristotle, and many others. Many others. Many others. Plato, Aristotle. He read all the great Greek philosophers. He would be hated by the American left today. He's buried in Tiberias, in a tomb. It's an interesting story for you to study. Born in 1138 and died in 1204 in Egypt. Now, I'm mentioning this for a couple of reasons that you may or may not believe, but I think it's important that you hear me because it's my story right now. You ready for my story right now? Here's my story. I went out with a young, pious scholar the other day, took him for a drink. He's an Orthodox Jewish man. They live by the book. They live and die by the book. They're the type who would rather be shot than give up their belief in God. They're the fanatics, in other words. And without the fanatics, we'd have no religion left at all. At all. There'd be no religion left at all. Especially in Jewish tradition, all you'd have is bagels and lox and Woody Allen. That's what all will be left in Judaism is bagels and lox. Oy vey, you're so nice. The B'nai B'rith Jews who gave rise to so many in this administration of Biden. All of them are the fallen Jews. Not one of them, so far as I know, is a follower of the Bible or of God. They're Jewish by culture, and they say that. Oh, yeah, I'm Jewish by culture. That would be 90% of Biden's administration. They don't know what God is. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in the hereafter. They don't believe in any of that. They believe in themselves and in the philosophy of doing good, meaning whatever they want to do is good. So listen to this. He and I talked, this guy, and he says to me, I have a gift for you. He didn't say to me, Michael, I have a gift for you. Let's get together. I called him to get together. And I'll tell you that story since I have time today to tell you stories. It's a very important story. There's a very famous religious Hasidic story that goes like this. A rabbi in New York is called by the head rabbi in Belgium many years ago. And you don't ask the head guy why he's calling you, and he says, come to Belgium. The guy doesn't ask, why should I come to Belgium? He goes to Belgium, books a ticket, gets on a plane. The plane stops over in London. The rabbi who's heading to Belgium gets off in London. He has to wait a few hours in the terminal, and he goes and sits on a bench. And next to him on the bench is a man, and they begin to talk. And the man on the bench and he talk, and he asks him what he's doing, and the rabbi asks him what he's doing. And he says, I'm not doing well. He said, I'm going to end my life today. I'm very unhappy. I'm depressed. I have no reason to live. So the rabbi talks with him and talks with him and tells him why life is sacred and it's not his life to take, that his body and his life belong to God. That's why, in Judaism, in Islam, in Christianity, it's not your life to take. We don't believe in assisted suicide. So the rabbi talks him out of suicide, gives him hope to go on, and says, when your time comes, God will take you, and it's not your time. And the guy says he won't commit suicide. So that's that story. So the rabbi gets on his connecting flight. He goes to Belgium, goes all the way into the head rabbi's house who called him. They usher him in. And so the guy from New York, the rabbi says, Rabbi, please tell me, why did you ask me to come to Belgium? So the head rabbi says to him, tell me what happened with you on the way here. So the traveling rabbi says to him, well, I was on a flight. I had to stop in London. And I met a man. And he says, and the man was going to commit suicide. And I told him about the sacred nature of life and why he must not commit suicide. And the man said he wouldn't. That's what happened on the way here, he says to the head rabbi. So the head rabbi says, now you can go home. He answered his own question. This is a spiritual story I'm telling you. It's a mystical story. It's a Hasidic story. This is how they operate in another realm. It's not on this dimension, two-dimensional, three-dimensional. It's a fifth dimension. They're very pious people work on another level. I was the one who told you that way back when Trump was running, he was playing three-dimensional chess. Everybody else was playing backgammon or checkers. It's been used over and over again. I'm the one who came up with three-dimensional chess because I operate in the three-dimensional chess world. And that's leading me to tell you something that you don't have to believe me, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. This same rabbi who I told a story to about the travelers, he himself didn't know the story, this young rabbi, didn't know this story at all. So I'll bring it down to today and yesterday. Today is what day? It's, I don't even know, Monday, Tuesday. Today's, what day of the week is it? Tuesday. It's July 4th, Tuesday. So on Sunday or Monday, I had been invited to see a ritual where the religious people don't cut the hair, the young boy's hair till he's 3 years old. It's a certain holiday. I don't know what it is. And then they have a celebration where they clip the hair and they save the hair. And I was invited to attend, and I didn't get there till it was over. And I accidentally called this other rabbi. I thought it was his son. And he said, no, it was the other guy. It's not like they all look alike to me, but really with the black coats and the black hats, they all look alike, many of them. So I said, look, I meant to go to the other guy's thing, and I called you. So he said to me, Michael, do you want to get together? I said, okay, let's meet for a drink. So although they follow kosher food laws, they're allowed to drink vodka, which I like about that. So I met him in a bar, went to have a drink together because he's allowed to have alcohol. And then we talked and we had a wonderful time. And I told him the story of the Belgium and the rabbi. And he said, I never heard that story. And he said, Michael, I want to tell you something. I said, what's that? He said, I know that you may be a reincarnation of Maimonides. I said, what? He said, well, you have exactly the same birth date and the same birth time in the Jewish calendar. I said, okay. Isn't that just a coincidence? He said, no, there's much more to it than that. He said, all the years you traveled as a scientist collecting plants, and your plants are now in a major museum for the world to study for ages to come. You're like the same kind of doctor, a herbal doctor, that Maimonides was to the leader, the Sultan. He was also a scientist. And he said, the way you speak and the way you have explained things to so many people, I said, well, I don't know if I believe in reincarnation to begin with. And it's funny that he brought it up. He said, well, you have exactly the same birth date and the birth time, and you have similar genius. That's coming from another person. So if it comes from me, you're not going to believe it. But if it doesn't come from me, who will it come from? It won't come from anyone in the media. You're not going to read it or hear it anywhere. So if you believe in reincarnation, and I'm not sure that I do anymore, because I wrote this just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, I don't know. I said why karma does not matter, because we do not remember our past lives. So why even think about it? That's logic. Why karma doesn't matter? We do not remember our past lives. So what's the difference? What we did? Are you like that? You catch what I just said to you? We hear it's karma, and he'll get paid off in karma. Maybe he won't. Some of the worst bastards on earth live to a ripe old age. Look at Stalin. He killed millions, tortured them to death. He lived to a ripe old age. So what's the karma of the reincarnated Stalin? I don't know. Why karma does not matter? Because we do not remember our past lives. So in other words, let's say the rabbi is right and I'm a reincarnation of the Rambam. Let's say for a minute, take that side of it. What difference does it make? I don't remember living in Egypt. I don't remember living in any of the places where he was born in Spain, although I do like paella, and I'm a good paella chef, and I love visiting Spain when I was young. I think Spain is a beautiful country in many ways, not just from the religious point of view. It's a beautiful Catholic nation. Am I a reincarnation of Maimonides? I don't know. Born in Cordoba, Spain in 1138. My herbal medicine. Why was I drawn to practice herbal medicine and travel the world looking for cures? Why are my plant collections in 7 museums around the world? What was that about? Who drove me? What drove me there to live in these villages and collect plants and then to document them and how they were used? I have to show you something if I can find it. Give me a minute. Here it is. Here it is. Very beautiful. Gift of new ethnobotany collection to UC Jeps. It's a big story to people in the world. In the fall of 2022, the herbaria received a special donation of 149 plant specimens from Fiji. The specimens were collected from 1971 to 1973 by Dr. Michael Weiner during his PhD research on nutritional ethnomedicine. During his research, Dr. Weiner worked with Fijian healers and practitioners to learn how the plants were used, and this detailed information was kept in field journals and was later published. An excerpt of the ethnobotanical information will be included with the specimens on a label that will be placed in the packet. Dr. Weiner holds master's degrees from the University of Hawaii in medical botany and medical anthropology, and a PhD from UC Berkeley in health and medical science. Since completing his degrees, Dr. Weiner has written 20 books that draw on his expertise in the field of nutritional ethnomedicine. With a generous gift to the Herbaria Futures Endowment Fund and an additional gift to support a UC Berkeley student, the specimens are being mounted, databased, and imaged. It is our pleasure to now be the stewards of this collection. And here is one of my collections with the original label, in case you think that it's all meaningless, it's because you're an ignorant fool. There are those who understand scholarly work, and the thing about plant collections, they last for hundreds of years. But this is just the beginning. There are 18 cartons of all of my writings, 18 cartons that have been documented now for well over a year by a team from a university, and they're going to be moved in September into the permanent collections. And I'll tell you more about that in another time. So my work will be there for scholars to study for years to come. My journals, my writings, my published, my unpublished, my fiction, my nonfiction, my poetry, things you've heard about, things you haven't heard about. The multidimension Michael Savage. So I said to the university, the curator of this library when we first started, I said, I'm tar brushed as a conservative or a this or a that. She said, no, no. She said, listen, first of all, we don't judge people by their politics. We collect great authors. And she said, you are so multidimensional, poet, scientist, botanist, radio talk show host. She said, you're a multidimensional human being. So we're honored to have your collections. So this is good. The cartons are in another facility that I have 12, 18 cartons of things. I may do another podcast showing you what's the outside of the cartons and what's in them. It even includes my daily journals that I wrote for years. It's hard to let go of them. I mean, I used to write journals incessantly and religiously. But more than that, I have daily planners, weekly planners going back to the 1970s. I'm one of these guys that keeps a book. I'll show it to you. Hold on now, of what I still do. It organizes my mind. And so I've done this for years. Each year I buy them, and each year I keep daily notes of what I put in them. Like this is the book for 2023, which I assume is the year we're living in, I hope. And I make notes of what I do each day. I have these going back to 1974. This is this year. Very interesting to me why I've done this. Why am I fanatically religious or obsessive compulsive about it? Why do I note everything I do? Why? Because I do. I do, therefore I am. And one day there will be someone who will want to write a detailed biography of me, and they'll look back to the 70s and they'll see the notes that I made about what I was doing of any significance that day, including my travels, my wants, my hopes, my dreams, the crashes in my life, and such. Why? Well, there's certainly, vanity. All is vanity, I get that. But without vanity, there'd be no world. So that's not a bad thing. There's good vanity and there's bad vanity. Remember, I started by saying 50% good, 50% bad. Not all vanity is evil. Without vanity, there'd be nothing. Man wouldn't paint a painting. See the painting behind me? That she painted it, what, 1914? Why? Because she knew she was a great artist and she wanted to capture that mountain exploding. Northern California, her husband took that picture with an old land camera, 1914. Let me see her name again. I always forget her name, and I shouldn't, since I'm referencing the painting, which you've seen on many of my broadcasts. Loomis, 1914, Loomis. Loomis, look up Loomis, Loomis. Why does an artist paint? Why does an artist sculpt? Why does an artist play a great instrument? Well, for the enjoyment, but also because their ego, their vanity, they want to prove how good they are. Do you understand that? Must I put everything in the vernacular of sports or a boxing match? Why do they box? To prove they're better than the other man. The vanity, all is vanity, but it's not all bad. So not all vanity is bad vanity. I start and go back to the same thing. 50% good, 50% bad. So to finish the story now and conclude, I've given you a 34-minute thing here. We're getting the morons now. They can't attack me. I'm too big. It doesn't matter what they say. They'll be deleted from the YouTube piece. I'll just ban them from my YouTube channel forever. The fools who've done nothing in their lives and who are jealous of me will be deleted forever. It will say, ban this user from YouTube channel. If you can't understand what I'm saying to you, if you can't understand how stupid you are to keep trying to attack me with stupid things, you little men. You'll be banned from YouTube. That's all. So to finish it up, so that same pious rabbi who I bought a drink for, we were leaving the bar and the after late, it was about 5, 6 o'clock the other day. He had a drink and he said to me, he didn't tell me he had a gift. He said, Michael, I have a gift for you. I said, what gift? He's the same young rabbi who said, you are a reincarnation of Maimonides, which is astounding to come from an Orthodox religious man. You get it? So he said, I have a gift. I said, what gift? He said, I have a prayer book for you. That is a big prayer book. It's a daily prayer book. And he said, read the Hebrew. Michael bin Benjamin Rachel. Michael bin Benjamin Rachel. Michael, the son of Benjamin and Rachel, Dr. Michael Weiner. And what this is interesting, I have a smaller version of this, which I've carried with me. It's the called a Siddur. I've taken it all over the world, the one I have. I've conducted services alone in Fiji when I was alone and lonely, like holiday prayers. I get lonely sometimes. I light the candles to say a prayer to myself, for not to myself, by myself. But there's everything in here. It's like a full thing, you know, what to do on a holiday, what to do on a children's illness, God forbid, what to say on during a marriage. I could perform a marriage. Uh, God forbid, a yard site for someone who died, mourner's Kaddish. I don't even want to repeat that, but all sorts of stuff. What you say in the morning and all of that. I'm not a religious man. I'm not a very pious man. I say I'm a highly spiritual man, very deeply connected to the Creator and to God. And I don't follow the doxies of the religion to a great extent. I'm not embarrassed that I don't. Sometimes wish that I was a little more pious and I may become so. Who knows? But right now, no. Right now, I'm just floating around like a leaf in the wind sometimes. So, how do I conclude today's story? We've taken a lot of rides with each other today. It's so deep, this one, in so many different ways, that I'm going to have this one transcribed because it's almost a biography, an autobiography that I just gave you. It'll be a big piece of an autobiography. In fact, I'll transcribe it and begin an autobiography or turn it over to a biographer. I almost hired a biographer last year and it was too much work. I didn't want to focus on my life. So how do you end a thing like this? I don't have a direct answer of how to say to you how to end this, other than this. I'll tell you how I end it. So a number of years ago, I suffered a cardiac event. Let's leave it at that. They call it an event. And as I'm being wheeled into the emergency room and I'm on some kind of drug, you know, before they wheel you in for thank God it wasn't a catastrophic event. It was a stent, but they said you almost died. So as I'm being wheeled in, I start the prayer for that people are supposed to say when they die, when they feel they're going to die. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and I'm repeating it in English. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us life. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us life. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I'm doing it over and over and over again on the gurney. They do their thing. They come out of the thing. I'm in the recovery room the next day. And the surgeon, a young Hispanic genius who went to Harvard, summa cum laude, says to my wife, he's okay. Your husband was delirious last night. As we were wheeling him into the emergency room, the surgery ward, he was mumbling to himself. I said, Doctor, I wasn't mumbling to myself. I was praying to God. I said, Doctor, you're a genius in medicine and science, but there's two sides to everything, including the spiritual and religious. It's not just science and medicine. I was praying for recovery. You get it? The religious, the spiritual, the science, all together. And on that note, I think I will conclude. Maybe I can find a prayer for you in here for today. I don't even know what the prayer might be. What should it be? What prayer should I make with you today? Prayer for travelers? No. Blessings for various occasions? Let's see that because this is an occasion. That's not a bad one. Blessings for various occasions. What is this occasion, July 4th? I was going to call this one liberation, or, this is like Independence Day. I was going to call this independence. Independence. I wrote it down. I want to read it exactly what I was going to call this one. I think it was, where's that note? Here it is. This was the notes I didn't use. Freedom from judgmentalism. Freedom from judgmentalism. We all need judgment. We should never lose our judgment, but we should lose our judgmentalism. 50-50. We're half good, half bad. The other man is half good, half bad. The politicians who you want to be 100% one way are not. They're half good and half bad. It relieves you of the pressure. Maimonides, Rambam, a guide for the perplexed. A guide for the perplexed. Freedom from judgmentalism. That should be the end of today's sermon, because I could go to the book. It's not going to be as meaningful to you as what I just read to you. Let me just see. Blessings for various occasions, page 86. I don't know if there's anything in here that would be of any value to anybody out there or irrelevant to today. Hot dogs and hamburgers and hot dog eating contests, mustard, mayonnaise, ketchup, French fries, all aboard? Yes, I know what to conclude with. It's not in here. So this pious young man who said that you are a reincarnation of Maimonides said to me, someone once asked the head rabbi, why do mosquitoes exist? They give nothing to the world. They just take. They sting you and they just take blood. They give nothing. They take nothing. So they said to the rabbi, why did they exist? Why did God create mosquitoes who just take? And the answer is to remind us not to be like a mosquito.